Hey there, friends. It's me and all my little monsters welcoming you to another exciting episode of this brand new channel. Here, we dive into the incredible world of knives, or better yet, the universe of knives. Why universe? Because on this channel, we're not just sticking to one type of knife. Oh no, we're exploring everything. Pocket knives, collector's knives, fixed blades, and even knives designed to be carried on a belt. Sure, they're not technically pocket knives, but they're still portable. Way more portable than, let's say, a kitchen knife. Today, we're taking a close look at a real beauty. The Wee knife EZINTA. You'll see the name pop up in the video, so you can look it up on Google if you want to know more. Now, this particular model hit the market just last year, in 2024, and it's made in China. What makes this knife so special? Well, for starters, it's an integral knife. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly does integral mean? It means the handle is made from a single, solid piece of material. Let's break that down. Instead of having separate scales or handles joined by screws and a backspacer, this knife is crafted as one seamless unit, with the handle and spine forming a continuous piece. Pretty cool, right? This design not only looks sleek and refined, but it also adds a bit more weight since it uses more material. And you know what? That extra weight actually gives it a premium feel. From an ergonomic standpoint, it's incredibly comfortable to hold. Without the usual backspacer and screws, the spine of the handle is smooth and uninterrupted, making it really pleasant to grip. And let's not forget, it also makes the knife sturdier and, honestly, gives it that extra wow factor. The craftsmanship behind an integral knife like this really sets it apart from the more traditional designs. So, not only are you getting a highly functional tool, but you're also holding something that feels truly special. Of course, when it comes to this knife, the scales are made of polished and satin-finished titanium. That gives it this beautiful, almost luxurious look that you can also... Whoa! Geez, I almost took off a finger there. Anyway, let's keep going. That same polished finish can also be found on parts of the blade, though it's not quite the same texture. If you take a good look at this knife under proper lighting, like here in my studio or outside in sunlight, you'll notice something pretty amazing. Despite being a dark material, it shines in a really unique way. The color isn't exactly black, it's more of a deep gray, but what's interesting is how it reflects light. It doesn't just sit there looking dull. It actually has this gorgeous sheen that catches your eye. It's one of those knives that's not just functional, but also a pleasure to look at and hold in your hand. It's an experience in itself. Now, let's talk about the blade. At first glance, you might not see any markings indicating the type of steel used, but I went ahead and double-checked on the Wee Knife website for you. This beauty is crafted from Bowler M390 steel. If you're familiar with premium knives, you'll know that M390 is a top-tier steel that's widely used in high-end models like this one. Why is it so special? Well, M390 is an exceptionally tough steel. According to the website, it has a hardness rating, HRC, of 58 to 60. That means it's incredibly durable and resistant to wear and tear, making it perfect for a knife like this. Of course, that kind of performance doesn't come cheap. Premium materials like M390 add to the cost. But honestly, it's worth every penny when you consider the quality you're getting. Of course, this is one of the best steels used in knife making. Its edge retention is exceptional, meaning it stays sharp for much longer, which is a big deal for collectors. Another great thing about it is its hardness. It's highly valued because knives made from this steel don't require as much maintenance as others. That said, you still need to give it some care. Typically, once a year, you'll want to sharpen it carefully. And if you're not experienced with sharpening, my advice is simple. Don't do it yourself. It's better to send it to a professional who can do it the right way. Now, in my case, I do sharpen my knives at home. I've got a machine that uses a belt system with sanding bands of various grits. It's a great setup, but let me tell you, learning how to use it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. I've messed up a knife or two along the way. Ha 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 ha. I've scratched a few blades, over-sharpened the edges, and even ended up altering the shape of the blade. So, trust me when I say this. Watch a few tutorials on YouTube before you start sharpening your knives. It's easy to make mistakes, and a little preparation goes a long way. In fact, I promise that one day I'll share what I've learned about sharpening in a future episode. I'm not an expert, but I've picked up some useful techniques over time, and I think it's a topic worth diving into. So, keep an eye out for that. As for the blade on this knife, it's a classic clip point design. The defining feature of this blade is its upward curving tip, which sets it apart from a drop point blade. A drop point slopes downward, giving it a lower tip. But here, as you can see, the tip curves slightly upward, which is why this style is known as a clip point. Notice this area here. Right along this section, there's a double edge. One edge starts from this line and goes downward while the other runs upward toward the tip. Now, in terms of functionality, this design doesn't make a huge difference. It's more of an aesthetic choice. If you look closely, the edge remains consistent across most of the blade, tapering toward the tip, which is exactly what you'd expect. Personally, I think this detail is purely visual. Honestly, they could have just gone with a flat grind, a simple, straight edge. But hey, the added curve does give it a unique character that some collectors might appreciate. Moving on, let's take a look at some of the finer details. See these flat sections along the blade? That's where you'll find the jimping, which is designed to give your thumb extra grip. It's a small feature, but it makes a big difference when you're doing tasks that require more force or precision cuts. The jimping ensures your hand won't slip, giving you better control and safety. Another interesting detail is the CNC work on this knife. CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control, and it's essentially a machine that follows highly precise AutoCAD instructions to shape and cut the steel. This level of precision is no easy feat, especially when working with high-grade steel. Without CNC technology, creating these intricate designs would be nearly impossible, particularly for a production knife like this, which is made in large batches for global distribution. Let's say there are also artisan knife makers out there who can achieve similar results, right? Of course, they use technology to assist them, but the level of craftsmanship they bring to the table is unmatched. Take someone like Todd Begg, Frank Fisher, or Stan Wilson, for example. These makers tend to prefer doing their finishing work by hand, which is why the production of their knives can take a significant amount of time. We're talking about months here. 3, 4, sometimes even 6 months to complete just one custom order. And that's exactly why their knives come with such a high price tag. In the US, these are referred to as custom knives, meaning they're handcrafted and tailored to the client's specific preferences. Customers get to choose the materials, finishes, and even finer details, making each piece unique. It's a labor-intensive process, but the result is more than just a knife. It's a work of art. Now, let's move on to what we've got here. This particular knife is a flipper. You can see the little trigger mechanism right here. Let me demonstrate carefully, though. I don't want to accidentally damage my studio again. Haha. Okay, let's give it a shot. There we go. Nice and smooth. And speaking of the flipper, let's talk about the detent. The detent is a tiny ball housed inside the handle scales. It plays a crucial role in the knife's mechanism, ensuring that the blade stays securely closed when not in use and provides just the right amount of resistance when deploying the blade. We'll explore this feature in more detail in a bit. The locking mechanism on this knife is built right into the handle. They've designed it with a cutout here, see? This allows the blade to lock securely in place once it's deployed. The frame lock engages with this section here, blocking the blade's movement and keeping it locked solidly in place. Once engaged, the blade won't move, no wobble up, down, left, or right. It stays as solid as a rock, just the way it should be. This mechanism is called a frame lock, which basically means the lock is integrated into the handle or frame of the knife. It's one of the most popular and widely used locking mechanisms in the knife world. It's not exclusive to this brand. In fact, it's been around for quite a while and is known for its practicality. One of the great things about the frame lock is that it allows you to operate the knife with just one hand, as you can see me doing right here. Now, we were talking about the flipper system earlier. This system works by pulling on this little tab that sticks out from the handle, allowing you to deploy the blade. Inside, there's a small ball called the detent. The detent prevents the blade from opening too easily while it's in your pocket or when the knife gets jostled around. It basically keeps the blade securely in place until you're ready to open it. But here's the thing. When you press the flipper tab, the detent also plays a crucial role in creating a smooth and snappy deployment. As you can see, it requires some pressure on the tab to overcome the detent, which is what makes the blade shoot out so quickly and reliably. This combination of safety and efficiency is what makes the flipper mechanism such a fan favorite among knife enthusiasts. We also have another deployment method here, which is through the thumb studs, these little barrel-shaped features right here. Can you see them? They're not just decorative inserts on the blade with no purpose. In fact, they serve a very practical function, allowing you to open the blade in this way. And let me tell you, in this case, it's super comfortable and easy to use. Some knives come with both thumb studs and a flipper mechanism, meaning they offer two different ways to deploy the blade. However, a common issue with some designs is the poor placement of the thumb studs. Sometimes they're positioned too far forward or too far back, making them awkward and uncomfortable to use. But that's not the case here. On this knife, the placement of the thumb studs is spot on. It's incredibly comfortable. Even though these thumb studs have a fairly straight design, they're not uncomfortable or painful to use at all. There are other knives out there where the studs are overly sharp or poorly finished, and they can really start to dig into your finger after repeated use. That's not fun, right? But here, the design is smooth and well executed, so you can use them without any discomfort. What else do we have? Oh, the pivot here is another detail worth mentioning. They've used polished titanium for the pivot's cover, which adds a nice touch of sophistication to the knife's overall design. It's these little details that really elevate the look and feel of the knife, making it not just functional but also a pleasure to hold and admire. On the other side, we have the pivot screw. From what I can tell, it's likely a T8 torque screw. This knife operates using bearings, which are, of course, hidden inside the mechanism. We can't see them directly. Let me show you. Maybe we can catch a glimpse. There we go. You can just barely see them in there. Now, some knives use washers, which can be made of copper or nylon, and these are often lubricated with a special oil to make the action smooth. But knives that use bearings, like this one, have a distinct feel to them. When you hold a knife with bearings, you'll notice that the blade glides open almost as if it's riding on rails. It's a very precise and consistent movement. On the other hand, knives with washers tend to feel softer, almost like the blade is floating. That said, the difference is largely subjective. Bearings provide a more uniform, constant motion, while washers offer a smoother, lighter sensation. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It really depends on the blade's weight and what the designer had in mind for the knife's specific purpose. It all comes down to the intended application and user preference. Now, let's move on to the handle scales. As I mentioned earlier, they're made of polished gray titanium, which gives the knife a sleek, sophisticated, and elegant look. The craftsmanship is impressive. You can see the milling work here. Check out these 3 holes, carefully machined into the scales. This detail not only adds to the aesthetic, but also showcases the precision of the cutting process. It's these little touches that elevate the knife from just a tool to a true piece of functional art. These holes here are made to slightly reduce the weight of the knife. You can see them, right? On the inside, these cutouts are designed to make the knife lighter and ensure it's well balanced. In this particular case, the balance point is located just below the pivot, right around the bearing system. It's nicely balanced. Now, I can't say for sure if leaving the handle scale solid without these 3 cutouts would have caused a balance issue, but this is how it's been designed and brought to market. Plus, These holes also add an aesthetic touch, giving the knife a bit of character. There's also a small indentation here for your index finger. When you're holding the knife, this spot allows your index finger to rest comfortably, providing a better grip. Moving to the spine of this integral knife, you'll notice these subtle recessed grooves. They're more of a decorative feature than a functional one, as they don't significantly enhance the grip. There's some texture on the underside of the handle where your palm rests. When you hold the knife, you can feel that this texture makes it slightly less slippery. The grooves allow your skin to settle into them, creating a bit more friction and making the grip feel more secure. It's a subtle but thoughtful detail that adds just a touch of extra control when the knife is in your hand. This knife, without a doubt, isn't designed for heavy-duty tasks or prolonged use. It's a collector's piece. Of course, don't get me wrong. It has an incredibly sharp edge, one of the best you'll find, and it can handle pretty much any task you throw at it. Remember, this blade is made from Böhler M390 steel, and it comes razor sharp straight from the factory. But it's not the kind of knife you'd want to use for something like carving up a log, you know? For one, because the handle is made of titanium, your hands might start to sweat during prolonged use, and it could become slippery over time. For tasks like that, things like hunting or camping, you'd be better off with knives designed specifically for those purposes. Those often have handles made from materials like wood, rubber, or high-strength plastics such as G10. We'll talk more about those materials in future videos. Now, what else can we say about this gorgeous knife? Let's take a look at the pocket clip. It's a sleek, minimalist design with the WeKnife logo subtly integrated into it, those vertical and horizontal lines you see here. It's a simple yet elegant detail. The clip also features a small indentation here, which, to me, is reminiscent of those old cross pens from the 1980s. You know, those fancy gold pens our parents or grandparents used for signing important contracts. It has that same kind of refined, luxury feel to it. Alright, so let's talk about the pocket clip. This clip lets you carry the knife securely in your pants pocket, with only a small portion of it sticking out. It's something like this. The rest of the knife stays tucked away inside your pocket. It's a discreet and elegant design, making it a great option for everyday carry. Now, this knife is versatile enough to take with you to dinner or even a wedding, though I'll admit it's a bit on the larger side. It might raise a few eyebrows if someone happens to see it. When fully deployed, it doesn't exactly fall into the category of a gentleman's knife, which are typically smaller, more understated, and primarily utilitarian. That said, this knife is perfectly suitable for certain occasions. Take it to work, bring it to a casual gathering, or show it off to friends. It could even spark an interesting conversation, especially if you frame your knife collection as a hobby centered on craftsmanship and utility, rather than as tools for self-defense or violence. Here on this channel, we don't promote violence of any kind, much less the misuse of knives. To me, knives are works of art, pieces to appreciate, collect, and use responsibly. Many people collect them as tools, and I'd say my own collection is a mix of both functional and artistic pieces. Take this knife, for example. It's one of my favorites. I don't use it for heavy-duty tasks. Instead, I keep it for light use and admiration. I might take it out to cut a box, trim some rope, or handle small, simple tasks that won't risk damaging it. It's not a knife I'd use for hard work. It's more of a prized possession to enjoy. Now, to wrap things up, let's check out the back of the knife. You'll see it has a small hole for attaching a lanyard or a drag cord, adding a bit more functionality to an already impressive piece. All right, let's open it up so you can get a better look. There we go. See how it slides through here? And on this side's through here? And on this side, you've got a small loop for a lanyard or cord. Some people like to attach a lanyard to their knives for easier handling or just for style. Personally, I don't usually add one to mine, but hey, it's a nice option to have if you're into that kind of thing. It's there for you, ready to go if you want to customize it. And that's pretty much it, my friends. This is a high-quality knife with a really solid build. Let's check the weight to give you an idea of its portability. All right, here it says 6 ounces. Now let's switch to grams, 168 grams to be exact. That puts it in the category of a fairly portable knife. It's easy to carry, but it still has some heft to it. This is no lightweight toy. It's a serious piece of gear. Personally, I prefer knives with a bit more weight to them. Lightweight knives are great for convenience, sure, but I like feeling the substance of a knife when I carry it. Of course, the trade-off is that a heavier knife will always remind you it's in your pocket. On the other hand, a lighter knife is practically unnoticeable. You might even forget you're carrying it throughout the day. Both options have their merits, depending on what you're looking for. Well, that's it for today, my friends. All my little monsters and I are sending you a big hello, and we hope to see you again very soon for episode 4 of this channel. I also hope you enjoyed the video and learned a little more about the fascinating universe of knives. As we discussed today, this knife is an integral, meaning the handle is made from a single solid piece. That feature makes it more valuable and, of course, more expensive to produce. Creating an integral knife requires a very precise design and careful execution during manufacturing. The tolerances for this type of knife need to be incredibly accurate, as any small flaw could compromise its strength. This attention to detail makes integral knives stand out as true masterpieces in the world of knife making. All right, my friends, it's time to say goodbye. My little monsters want me to remind you that you can look up these knives on Google. I'll leave the name of the knife in the video so you can search for prices or find more details. You'll probably come across some other reviews on YouTube as well. One thing to note about this channel is that you've got the best of both worlds. I make videos in English and Spanish. I have 2 channels, one called Filomania, which is in Spanish, and another called Filomania Knife Universe, which is geared toward English-speaking viewers. So no matter what language you prefer, I've got you covered. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. And hey, don't stress out.